The journey toward mastery does not begin in moments of ease, but in the willingness to confront what is uncomfortable. Comfort is a place of stillness, but not the stillness that cultivates clarity. Rather, it is the stillness that leads to stagnation. Growth is not born in the familiar. It takes root in tension, in friction, and in repeated exposure to one's own limits. When a person begins to lean into that which others avoid, the path of mastery begins to unfold. The first lesson in this journey is to recognize that discomfort is not an enemy. It is a mirror. It shows you who you are when you are not in control, when nothing goes according to plan. And it is precisely in those moments, uncomfortable, uncertain, often overwhelming, where the raw material of inner strength is forged. A disciplined mind does not seek to escape these conditions. It learns to walk with them. In physical training, in mental refinement, and in emotional stability, the principle remains constant. The body adapts under pressure, the mind focuses under resistance, and the spirit rises when tested. Those who train only when they feel like it will always remain ruled by their moods. But those who train regardless of how they feel begin to command both body and mind. The process of conditioning, repetition, and facing failure is not glamorous. It is quiet, consistent, and often invisible to the outside world, but each step taken beyond the boundary of comfort expands the threshold of what one can endure. Mastery does not announce itself with sudden brilliance. It arrives silently through repeated encounters with difficulty and the refusal to be broken by it. Pain, fatigue, boredom, these are the signals most avoid. Yet they are the gatekeepers to precision, to sharpness, and to control under chaos. A warrior does not seek to eliminate these signals, but learns to listen to them, and in listening becomes more exact, more present, more effective. The one who chooses the fire willingly is not consumed by it. There is a great difference between choosing the hard path and being forced onto it. When the difficult path is chosen consciously, a transformation occurs. The practitioner no longer sees resistance as punishment, but as invitation. Every repetition, every failure, every drop of sweat becomes part of a deeper alignment with purpose. Comfort feeds the ego. It says you are fine as you are. Discomfort humbles the ego. It shows there is more to refine. The one who walks the path of discomfort walks into himself again and again until the layers of pretense are gone. What remains is not a perfect being but a focused one, not without fear, but without escape. Each day spent just beyond the edge of comfort is a day invested in mastery. Not the mastery that seeks applause or recognition, but the mastery that sits quietly in the bones. Ready, unshaken, and deeply grounded silence is not the absence of sound, but the presence of control. In the space where others rush to speak, to react, or to justify, the disciplined mind remains still. It listens, it observes, and it waits. Silence becomes a sharpened blade, invisible yet precise, revealing what noise tries to conceal. The one who does not rush to fill the void commands it. In moments of pressure, silence creates space. It creates space between action and reaction, between impulse and intention. While the undisciplined are ruled by their emotions, the one who trains in silence learns the art of internal restraint. That stillness is not passive, it is active containment, a conscious effort to hold energy rather than scatter it. When facing conflict, the loudest is often the weakest. Noise is often used to mask uncertainty, to create illusions of control. But silence strips away illusion. It reveals presence. It reveals focus. It does not need to prove itself because it is already rooted. To be silent when provoked is not weakness. It is a demonstration of internal mastery. There is silence in the way the body moves when trained with intent. In combat, the most efficient strike is not accompanied by chaos, but by quiet execution. Noise wastes energy, silence conserves it. Every movement, every breath becomes deliberate, free of distraction, directed without excess. In that silence, precision is born. Silence also refines awareness. Without the clutter of constant talking, attention is sharpened. Details emerge: tone, timing, rhythm, breath. The silent observer is always learning, not because they ask more, but because they need less. They have trained their perception to pick up on what others miss while they are busy speaking. In training, silence is a mirror. It reflects the state of the mind. If one cannot sit in silence, they are not yet in control of their thoughts. If silence becomes unbearable, it means the noise within still governs the mind. Therefore, silence becomes the battlefield where the internal war is either won or prolonged. Discipline is reflected not only in action, but in restraint. The ability to remain quiet when ego wants to speak, when fear wants to defend, when pride wants to respond. This is discipline, and it is in this held energy that one begins to access deeper strength, not as something external, but as a cultivated inner reservoir. The warrior does not fear silence because they have trained in it. They have sat with their own doubts, faced the discomfort of stillness, and emerged with clarity. That clarity is carried into every room, every decision, and every confrontation. The ego is loud, urgent, and easily offended. It seeks validation, recognition, and control. But when the mission becomes greater than the ego, these cravings begin to dissolve. Purpose replaces pride, and commitment overrides the desire to be seen. In this shift, actions are no longer driven by personal reward, but by alignment with something beyond the self. In elite environments, whether on the battlefield or in disciplined practice, the individual does not act for applause. Every movement is directed toward precision, toward unity, and toward completion of the task. There is no time for ego's distractions when responsibility is shared and outcomes carry weight. When the focus is the mission, there is no room for self-centered hesitation. To walk this path requires sacrifice, not of the body alone, but of identity. The need to be right, to be first, to be praised, must be relinquished. Those who carry the Tier 1 mindset understand that individual brilliance means little without the cohesion of the whole. In such a mindset, silence is often more powerful than opinion, and service is more valuable than spotlight. The mission teaches humility. It reminds the practitioner that success does not depend on one person's ego, but on collective discipline and trust. It demands that each member know their role, respect the structure, and act with integrity. In this way, the mission becomes not only the goal, but the structure within which ego is dissolved and strength is multiplied. The ego seeks to personalize everything. It wants credit for success and excuses for failure. But the mission-oriented mind remains impersonal. It assesses results without attachment and evaluates actions without drama. In doing so, it gains clarity. The focus shifts from self to system, from possession to contribution. This is where performance sharpens and distractions fall away. When the ego leads, fear follows. Fear of failure, fear of being overlooked, fear of judgment. But when purpose leads, there is nothing left to prove. The action becomes pure, efficient, and precise. There is no waste because there is no ego demanding to be fed. This is how professionals execute with calm under pressure and how discipline takes root without noise. True strength comes not from dominance, but from service. To serve a mission means to accept one's limits, to train beyond them, and to contribute without demand. In doing so, the practitioner gains access to a deeper kind of power, not fueled by status or opinion, but by consistency and alignment. This power moves quietly but leaves lasting impact. The greater the mission, the quieter the ego must become. The one who truly understands this stops asking, "What do I gain?" and begins to ask, "What must be done?" Repetition is often misunderstood. To the untrained mind, it appears dull, monotonous, without excitement. But to the one who seeks mastery, repetition is the ground upon which skill, awareness, and insight are built. The mind does not transform through variety, but through devotion to the fundamentals repeated again and again until they become a part of one's being. Every movement practiced is more than just physical. Each repetition reveals something subtle: posture, breath, timing, tension. These are not noticed in the first or the 10th attempt, but slowly unfold in the 100th, the 1000th. The outer form remains the same, yet the internal understanding deepens. Repetition is a conversation with the self that becomes more refined with each cycle. True learning does not come from doing many things one time. It comes from doing one thing many times with full attention. This is where the depth lies. This is where insight grows. As the body moves again and again, the mind becomes quieter, more focused, more aware. This is not boredom. It is meditation in motion. The ego resists repetition. It seeks novelty, achievement, and applause. But repetition offers none of these. It offers stillness. It offers silence. It offers the challenge of facing oneself without distraction. In repetition, excuses fade, masks fall away, and only the truth remains. Whether one is present or not, disciplined or not, prepared or not. In the repetition of form, the practitioner begins to meet the formless. At first, the movement is mechanical, but over time, it becomes an extension of thought, then an expression of spirit. Repetition becomes the path through which one enters the deeper layers of practice, the layers that cannot be reached through theory or explanation. The lessons embedded in repetition are not immediate. They emerge in still moments, often without warning. A breath aligns, a posture unlocks, a movement flows effortlessly. These breakthroughs are not sudden. They are earned through patient devotion to doing the same thing until the body and mind no longer resist. The mind does not understand this through logic, but through experience. Every repetition is an invitation to return to presence, return to awareness, return to the source. In this return, something shifts, not in the technique, but in the practitioner. What seemed simple becomes profound. What once required effort becomes effortless. The motion becomes emptiness filled with intention. Through repetition, the ordinary becomes sacred. The practice becomes the path. And within the repetition itself, the practitioner discovers not just skill, but self-fear arises naturally. It is not a sign of weakness, but of awareness. It signals danger, unpredictability, and risk. To feel fear is not a failure. It is a function of being alive. What matters is not the presence of fear, but the quality of the response it invites. The one who is trained understands that fear is not the enemy, reaction is. An untrained mind reacts. It contracts, it panics, it fights to escape what is unfamiliar, but the trained mind observes. It does not rush. It does not flee. It meets fear like it meets breath, acknowledging its presence without surrendering to it. Reaction is blind, response is clear. Between them lies the space of choice, and that space is where mastery begins. Fear speaks in urgency. It pushes the nervous system to move, to act, to defend. But when every signal is followed without question, clarity is lost. Stillness becomes impossible. The practitioner who reacts to every fear remains trapped in external conditions. But the one who learns to stand still in the presence of fear becomes free from it. Training does not remove fear. It teaches the body to move despite it, and the mind to act with it rather than against it. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the capacity to move with precision while fear is still present. This is not instinct. It is discipline shaped by repetition and awareness. The more one trains, the more predictable fear becomes. It arises in similar patterns: before challenge, before risk, before the unknown. And with each repetition of facing it, the practitioner begins to recognize its voice without being moved by it. Reaction becomes slower. Response becomes sharper. Movement becomes cleaner. In combat, in performance, in life, fear will always arrive, but its arrival is not a command. It is an opportunity to choose differently. When the body has been trained to act without the permission of fear, it begins to move from depth, not from impulse. This movement is not loud or frantic. It is exact, steady, and rooted. There is wisdom in fear. It teaches presence. It sharpens instinct. But that wisdom only reveals itself when one is not overwhelmed by reaction. The same fear that paralyzes the reactive mind becomes the very energy that powers the focused one. The only difference is training, internal, intentional, and consistent. To face fear and not react is to begin the path of self-control. To observe it, breathe through it, and still move forward is to reclaim authority over the inner state. Pressure reveals what is essential. When everything is on the line, when time is short and risk is high, only what matters most remains. Complexity begins to collapse under pressure, unable to withstand the weight of urgency. What endures is simplicity, clean, refined, and purposeful. It is in these moments that truth is no longer hidden by ornament or distraction. In the disciplined life, simplicity is not a weakness but a strength. It is the result of stripping away everything that is unnecessary, everything that clutters the mind, the movement, and the decision. A simple strategy does not fail when the situation becomes chaotic. It becomes more visible, more effective, and more trustworthy. The mind trained in simplicity does not overthink. It does not seek to impress. It acts from clarity, from alignment, and from deliberate preparation. Under pressure, the overcomplicated approach fractures. It hesitates, it second, guesses, but the simple approach remains steady because it was born from repetition, not from the need to appear clever. Simplicity is forged through practice. It is the result of doing one thing 1,000 times, not chasing 1,000 things one time. A simple breath, a simple step, a simple strike, executed with full presence, is more effective than layers of theory disconnected from embodiment. When pressure rises, theory falls away. What remains is only what has been absorbed. The truth of who we are emerges in these moments, not who we imagine ourselves to be, but who we are when all distractions are removed. The one who trains to simplify their technique, their thoughts, and their reactions begins to touch this truth not just in crisis, but in daily practice. They are not impressed by noise, they are drawn to what works. The external world often celebrates complication. More steps, more words, more systems. But the internal path reveals something else. That depth is not in how much is added, but in how much is removed. The practitioner who simplifies under pressure is not reducing strength. They are refining it. To live with simplicity is to trust what has been trained. It is to act without hesitation, not because one is careless, but because one has already faced the pressure in silence, in repetition, and in discomfort. Simplicity becomes not just a method of action, but a reflection of inner order. Where others scramble, the one grounded in simplicity moves with calm. Their movements are few but effective. Their focus is narrow but deep. Their mind is not divided. This is the truth that emerges when the unnecessary is stripped away and only the essential remains.